Hi there, guys. My name's Josh. I'm the host of Recovery Talks 24/7, and we are sponsored by the amazing Money Wellness. And Money Wellness, what they do is they support you every step of the way if you are struggling with any form of debt at all. And I was once there myself in a massive amount of debt. I didn't know what I needed to do. So what I did is I searched online, searched Money Wellness, gave them a call, really, really nervous. But I tell you something, they changed my life. And I managed to get debt free because of them, and they supported me every step of the way. So if it is something that you are struggling with today, or if you are going through, some form of issue with debt, then please do give them a call. They will support you and they will help you, just like how they helped me. Now today, it's beautiful weather outside. Absolutely buzzing with this English weather. I know what we normally have is normally wet, windy, horrible. But today we've got an amazing guest with us. Her name is Donna. Now, Donna, I spoke to quite a while back in regards to coming onto the podcast show. Then, as we all know, life turns up, things happen, babies are born, relationships flourish, and then we all sort of kind of get sidetracked. But I managed to get back in contact with Donna, and what really, really inspired me about herself is with her story, that what she kind of briefly spoke to me about. But I don't really want to take up more of her time, and I want it to be more about her story, about her. And it is really, really interesting. And I had the privilege of being able to hear about her life and what she's been through. And I really, really do hope if anyone that is listening today, then please do listen very clearly to what she is saying. And if there is anything that you are going through that's something you relate to, we will be able to kind of give you some information that you can reach out to Donna herself as well. So without further ado, Donna, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Donna. Donna, again, I really appreciate today for you coming on and, as we both know, kind of plucking up the courage to come on and share a bit about your life and what you have been through as a person. And I know the word recovery talks 24/7. It isn't just about somebody that has been addicted to drugs. It could be about anything to do with recovering in your life in some form, which could do with mental health or something that you went through personally. And that's why I wanted to speak to you. So sort of, Donna, would you be able to kind of explain to me, when you look back at your sort of childhood, what did sort of stability mean to you? And did you ever feel like you had it at all?
No, not at all, really. So the first part of my childhood, when I lived in Newcastle, up to about the age of 7 years old, I would definitely say there was no stability there at all. It felt very unsafe, and it wasn't. I remember them feelings quite strongly. It felt like I didn't have a normal life. When you would look at other people and you'd be like, they've got a normal life, whatever normal's meant to be. But this is just, my young mind, like looking at things and observing. And I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that what I had wasn't the norm or didn't seem anywhere near close to what anybody else had. So yeah, the stability factor did improve when I had moved from Newcastle. But yeah, that beginning bit of childhood, which I believe is crucial for little human beings' brains to develop, was definitely, there was no real stability there at all.
And it's something that a lot of people, for myself as well, and maybe other people that are listening, when they go through life and they may not have what other people have, I remember as a child, I used to think, is that, how comes they've got a mum and dad, or how comes they're sort of having a normal lifestyle and there's me going home and then I'm going home to sort of kind of turmoil, or things are going on at home, don't really understand it, but I just get on with it. And I think it's normal as well. Kind of going on from that, then growing up, without a sort of a father figure, because I know off camera you did kind of briefly speak about that. How did that sort of shape your understanding of the word love and safety? What did that do for you?
When I was in Newcastle, so my dad wasn't around at all. He is actually now. I actually found him when I was pregnant with my first child, when I was pregnant with Penelope, and I'd never known him before in my life. Yeah, so he wasn't around at all when I was young, and I lived with my mum and my grandma, and there was alcoholism involved. So it all looked very different to everybody else's situation. So like you were saying, you look at other people and say, oh, they've got a mum, they've got a dad, and then you look at your own situation. Now, I did live with my grandma, so she kind of brought, I feel like, the only bit of love and safety to the party. Obviously my mum had her issues, and that was very unstable. And I remember feeling very unsafe when my grandma wasn't around. So growing up, my situation was vastly different. And then it got even more different, because when we moved from Newcastle, I went on my own to live with my uncle. And my uncle was able to do this because he was already a full-time carer for my nana, which was my grandma's mother. And he was able to take care of me. And that was fine, because my grandma and I would come down on a weekend, so I knew him very well. I knew him, I knew the girls over the road, and I was coming from quite a rough estate in Newcastle to Harrogate, right? So it was like as different as night and day. Harrogate, I remember in my mind thinking, oh my gosh, it's so green. There's trees and grass everywhere. And it was like, I remembered, even like when I think now to my growing up time in Newcastle, it just seems grey. It seems bleak. And that's probably overshadowed by the situation I was in. But then I would come down to Harrogate with my grandma and I'd be like, oh my God, this is beautiful here. So although it was great for me moving in with my uncle, it still was a very different situation. So back then as well, everyone was like, why does she live with her uncle? That's so weird. And you know what kids are like? Why do you live with him? Where's your mum? Where's your dad? You know, and it's very much like that. So and the feeling of safety improved there. That I did feel safe with my uncle. But yeah, in terms of the love, like obviously I got on with my uncle and we love each other as family. However, I didn't have love from a dad, and I didn't know who he was or where he was or what he was, you know, and I didn't ever really feel like I had love from my mum. And that's how I remember it, you know, like there probably was times where we had a really nice time, but I don't remember that part. So I felt very without that, and I felt that very young. And that definitely had a big impact on sort of them behavioural traits kind of growing up.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would, when they have a look back on their past, and like we both can agree, and probably people that are listening as well, it was just normal for us,
Mm.
normal for that person that's going through that. And yeah, people did have comments and going, where's your mum? Where's your dad? And it's like, well, that's all right. You know, I'm with my family members, so it's fine. But did, in regards to, you know, as a child, if you can remember, did you sort of feel seen or any supported as a child? Or did you sort of feel like, right, Donna's just got to try and sort and find life for herself?
Mm. Definitely the latter. So yeah, I didn't ever feel any encouragement really from my mum. So definitely not. In fact, it was quite. And I don't mean to speak bad of her, because because of, you know, how much I've looked into all this, I know that there are reasons why she is the way she is, etc. But like it would come down to, you know, I remember reading a school book and I would be getting the words wrong, and I was like 5 or 6, and the sort of the reaction to that, you know, the shouting and the swearing and the total, you know, so I felt completely not supported. And my uncle was great. However, in that household, I did just kind of have to get on with it. And I didn't really get on with it, to be honest, at all, where school was concerned. I couldn't really, I didn't really focus on my studies. I did at a certain time, because the people pleaser in me, you know, quite liked the attention off the teachers when I was doing well, but it wasn't enough to keep me on track. So yeah, I didn't really take school too seriously, and this is where I developed this being out for myself kind of persona. It was, yeah, I I couldn't really ever see past myself because I had to be out for myself. It was like survival mode. And it kind of shaped who I was for a long time, because that's all I thought about was myself. Like, it was really quite an now I can see why, and it makes sense. But yeah, it was I need to kind of get out there and figure this out on my own, and I don't know quite what that's going to look like. And obviously, for a long time, it went very, very wrong before it went right.
Yeah. And I totally relate to that as well. And probably people are going, yeah, I relate to that massively. I think, do you know what? I remember, my mum used to say to me, like, Josh, sometimes you got to go through this stuff to find out later on in life, and you grow up and you find out your identity. So I'm guessing for you at that age and growing up and sort of accepting that you're not living at your parents, accepting that you're living with your uncle, um, I'm guessing you was going through some sort of like trying to find your identity, going through this sort of behavioral problem, like the issues and the patterns that are going on, with school,
Hmm.
not having any sort of, wanting to be the center of attention, finding out who you are. Did you go through any sort of mental health sort of issues back then, like through anxiety or anything like that?
Yeah, so there was a whole host of stuff that I didn't know what it was for years. So the panic attacks started quite young, and even prior to that, like my mindset was such that I didn't appreciate anything I had. So I didn't appreciate the fact that I lived with my uncle and there was food on the table, and I actually lived in Harrogate, which is a really nice place to live, and that I had great friends. I didn't appreciate any of that. I had a very, very, and I mean, I was entitled for years, very, very entitled, and that does come off the back of having to look out for yourself. But I wanted what everybody else had. So I was like, I want to be part of this family. I want to be part of that family. So I was never happy. I was never grateful. I was jealous of everybody. And and then it the anxieties it kicked in. I'm trying to think about sort of how old I was when I had my first panic attack, but it was young. I was still in my teens, and I didn't have a clue what was happening, and it felt like I was dying. And I could never. I went to the doctors. I remember going to the doctors repeatedly for it and trying to explain it, and they didn't have a clue what I was talking about, and that was really isolating. So I was like, I'm trying to tell you that something keeps happening to me. And then because they didn't know what it was, I'm like, well, this is a doctor. I didn't know what it was. And then the fear with anxiety, it breeds on fear. So the more and more scared I was becoming, the more sheltered my life was becoming. Because if I had a panic attack in the office at work, I would this was like my first ever job. So it was my first ever job in a call center at like 17. I would then associate that panic attack with being there. Every time I remember it would happen like in wild situations, like when I was having a spray tan and when I'd be at work, or when I'd suddenly walk out of a building into the outside, and it's like the sensory thing would get me. Um, and I never knew what to do with it. And I would end up just running away from wherever I was. So that literally became my life. I was literally constantly in a fight or flight state. And the only thing that took that away was booze. The only way that took that physical feeling away was booze. And prior to that, I suppose the beginning of all that was that obviously I didn't know who I was and didn't have a clue really what I was about or anything. But I had zero confidence. Alcohol from a young age, because there was loads of us that were all like lost souls that used to gather at the park on a Friday night at 12, 13 and neck loads of cider. What it did for me there was like, oh, I'm all of a sudden confident. So there was like all of these things that stemmed like low self-worth, zero confidence, scared of everything. And then it was like, oh, I'll drink this and it all goes away. All of it immediately, you know? Yeah, that started pretty young. So yeah.
Quite, it's quite a big thing to talk about as well, isn't it? Because I think for a lot of people, that I've noticed in my lifetime as well, you know, especially when it comes to alcohol, you know, they're not alcoholics. They weren't alcoholics, but they just knew that there was something that they could take to comfort them. And a lot of them, funny enough, went through a lot of difficulty when they was younger, and a lot of it was to do with their identity. They didn't know who they were. They didn't have stability in their life. They've tried to had to fend for themselves by themselves. They've managed to, you know, get a great job. They've managed to get a house and have a car and all of that. But then they've noticed that to cope with the particular feelings, like you said, you know, having that anxious feeling, having that, you know, that not having any confidence, and then all of a sudden you've had a drink, and it's like, yeah,
Mm,
just relaxes everything. And you know, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I know that feeling
mm,
100%. You just have a drink, and literally everything just goes away.
mhm,
You just feel really at peace. Well, you think you just feel at peace. And then, you know, when people say, oh, I can't wait for a drink, it's been such a stressful week.
mm,
Yeah, that's fine,
yeah.
you know, but then it can kind of go a little bit out of control,
Mm.
as well. So do you think then you're sort of like that addictive sort of nature? I'm guessing you've kind of just gone, I know what I can do. I
Mm.
can just keep having a
Mm.
drink and it'll be right. Was that something this is an interesting question, that you were born with, or is that something that you have developed through your environment, through what's happened through your childhood? Is that something that you've just gone, I'm just going to go and do that? Or do you believe that you was born like,
So no, I don't think I was born like that. So I've spent a lot of time researching on this topic, like, because you'd like, why am I like this? Um, because I can abuse the hell out of caffeine. Do you know what I mean? I can't even be trusted with caffeine. I am constant in a on-off relationship with it because it's no good for me, but I love it and I want it. So yeah, so when I've researched into this, I I feel like what I've come to the understanding of, or how I perceive it in my mind, I think everybody's kind of got a baseline. So like everybody's brought up in a way and everybody's got their own, their own stuff, everybody's got their own stuff, issues, whatever. And I kind of see it that if you've unfortunately had, a few bits of trauma quite early when it's affected you as a child or whatever, I feel like you're almost starting sub baseline. So I think this addictive nature, this is how I feel for me anyway, is like an attempt to get over that baseline and then some, because you're not really like a steady Eddie, and I know I'm not. I'm up and down and up and down. And that's where I feel like that addictive cycle comes from, because you're like, oh my God, this makes me feel great. This makes me, and then it's like, I'll have more and more of that, because actually at a normal time, I'm substandard with it, So it's almost like you kind of overcompensate, is what I'm trying to say. You
yeah,
overcompensate with the good feeling and what you get from it. And then but then obviously what goes up must come down. So it becomes a very extreme relationship with whatever it is. And it can literally be anything. When I first stopped drinking, I was obsessed with running, like obsessed to the point of going for 10-mile runs each morning, and it was so obsessive that actually I was doing my shins in and in, because it was too much too soon. So it can literally, you can throw that energy into anything, into food, into social
yeah,
media, like it can go anywhere. But I do believe it comes from the environment that you were in and what happened and how that made you feel, and then what you do as an individual then to kind of overcompensate for them deficits.
yeah. And I totally agree with that 100%. You know, yeah, I'm a recovering addict, but dear God Almighty, there's things that even when I look around in the house now, I just think, wow, that I was got addicted to just building stuff. And I'm like, "Well, okay." And then I'll get bored of that. And then I'll got on something else. Do you know what I mean? I might come back to that building stuff maybe about 6 months later and I'll get obsessed with that. So I totally, totally agree with
Yeah.
that. And I think we all go through a stage which is very, very uncomfortable. And I totally I rate anyone that goes through this, is going through this period in your life when you're trying to identify who you are.
Mm.
I think that is a really uncomfortable period in
Oh,
anybody's
yeah.
life, especially when they are standing there going, right, I'm ready,
Yeah.
peel back them
Mm.
layers and let's find out. And, you know, I've reached a point in my life that I've been able to do that. Was it uncomfortable? Course it
Yeah.
flipping was. Was it emotional? Course it was. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't even speak to people about things because it was so
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But again, that can relate to anybody that is in addiction, that isn't an addiction, and they're just going through a, you know, an identity crisis. They don't know who they are. They don't understand why things are going on.
Yeah.
But you just get to that point in life where you go, I'm ready, you
100%.
know, and it is a big step. It is a massive step for a lot of people to be able to stand there and go, do you know what? I'm ready.
Mm.
I'm ready to be honest, not to just other people, but to myself.
Yes,
And it's
it
scary. It
is.
is scary. But dear God, I know for a fact that it's like a whole weight's lifted off your shoulders.
Mm.
Doesn't all come at once.
No,
It is a period of time,
many stages,
but it's little by
phases.
little ball. Yeah, exactly. um, and that gets onto like with your share today.
Mm.
You know, there's a lot of honesty in saying that, you know, you didn't like yourself.
Mm.
That's massive,
Mm.
Donna, huge. What were your thoughts though that you were battling internally? Like what was going on inside for you?
Yeah, so the inner critic in my mind has always been really loud from a very young age. Because like what I was saying about that jealousy, like you need to be like this, you need to be like that. And it wasn't always both a blessing and a curse, really, because it wasn't always so bad in the fact that it made me better my life. So I was lucky I got to live with my uncle in a place where I was surrounded by actually good people. So I was jealous and I wanted all what they had. And so, you know, it wasn't coming from the best place, but it made me determined. Because everybody around me had more, was a bit of kind of a bit of an upper class to what I
Yeah.
was. And I always wanted it. I always wanted more. Always. The narrative that went on in my mind, like I remember like even being at school and whenever somebody, like, kids taking the mick out of one and each other, of one another, um, it would really stick with me. Like I couldn't, like they would take the mick out of me, or, I was quite quiet, and just anything, and it would really stick with me because I believed it. I didn't have a person that I already knew inside me to be like, whatever, bat it off. I couldn't bat anything off like that. I believed everything that everyone said because I didn't know or trust anything from myself. Um, so anything that they said, I believed it. So I was never happy with myself. And yeah, it was, and I didn't even I didn't even know that there was someone in there to kind of listen to. It was all very negative. And so anybody I met, actually, this is interesting. Anybody I met, I actually tried to be like them. So I like a real character chameleon. And this went for blokes as well. So any close friend, I just wanted to be like them. I would be into all the same, all I would get into the same things they were. I would just kind of morph into an extension of them, really. And I'd flit around, and then I'd have a new friend, and then I would change again. And I kind of went around doing that. And then I just had all of like these different groups of friends, which there's nothing wrong with. However, I couldn't even keep a consistent, group of friends. It was always very change, right? I'm like this now. No, actually I'm like this now. Because I was just trying on everything because I didn't know what was for me. And then this happened. Then this happened in relationships as well, just becoming an extension of the person I was with, and not having my own identity at all. There was no identity or being what people wanted from me, which I was really good at partying. So that's what I kind of became for a very long time, because everybody knew Party Donna, and wanted to get involved with that. So that was kind of shaped who I was for like, far too long.
Yeah. And it does, doesn't it? Because you've kind of created yourself to be this person. And again, I totally agree when it comes to, adjusting to the environment. And I sometimes still go through that and I have to stop myself and go, no, Josh, be you.
Yeah.
Be who you are, because that's who you're meant to be. Do you know what I mean? And I'm guilty of it sometimes. I'm not perfect at it. And it's an interesting thing because especially when it comes to, others wanting to be the yes person, like you said, being a yes person. Oh, come on, let's go do that. Yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
But it feels like by the time you've done that thing with the people, gone out of them, had a laugh, all of that, you come home and you're absolutely knackered up here.
Yeah.
It is just taking such a toll of yourself. And then you're like, you have to go try and get to sleep and go, oh, did I act all right? Did they like me? And then the following day, you've got to try and be that person that you're not. And it just becomes so tiring, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing as well, it must have really affected your anxiety because
Oh
it
my
must have been like
gosh.
getting off crazy
Yeah,
inside.
like inner turmoil, because I remember being so scared to do so much of the stuff I did, but I would just get drunk and do it because I was like, well, this is what we do. This is my crew. This is what we do. And it wasn't me at all. And I knew it wasn't. But I would just get drunk and carry on. It was absolutely wild. I remember looking at some things thinking there's not a chance. But then the next day I'd just do it, It was like, there was no like central part of me that I could just check in with. It was just loose, just so loose, going with whatever anyone else wanted to do.
So let's look at your turning point, sort of rock bottom, for people. And everyone's rock bottom is completely different. And, to one person's rock bottom may be major, to other people it's like, oh, it's not that bad. So we all know, your life story so far, what you've been through, it was massive. And anyone that's listening as well, you may only think, well, my life's not that bad, but it's still your rock bottom. So don't ever feel like your rock bottom is not enough, to kind of go, I need to help or I need to sort something out. It's okay. So Donna, was there a sort of specific moment when you thought to yourself, do you know what? Something's got to change? Or was it a sort of a slow build up for yourself to realize I need to change?
I always had self-awareness, so I knew my drinking and partying was excessive when I was a teen. I knew that it was strange that I was the only girl that would stay up for days on end. I knew that I was the one that that would wake up the next morning and be able to drink straight away or whatever, and carry on that sort of weekend, them long weekend benders. I knew for ages, I had self-awareness for the longest time, but self-awareness is nothing without the action to change it, right? So I had the self-awareness for years. The pivotal point when I was like, right, no more. It was a Monday morning. I remember it clear as day. It was a Monday morning, and even though my sessioning had become less frequent, the severity had gotten worse. I'd landed a job, which was pretty much the job I'd always wanted to do. And I'd even managed to buy myself my own flat. And this is like in my early 30s. And so actually on paper, like, oh, she's doing all right. Doing all the things you meant to be doing or whatever. But I was so on the brink of losing so much of it. So what a lot of people didn't realize was that like I kept moving about because I didn't have the longevity to progress because I just kept letting people down, like in work. And so I would just move and I would like start afresh, and then the same thing would happen. So I'd got this job, which was the type of job I'd always wanted to do, very salesy, very on the road. And it started creeping back in. I think even like on my first day, I'd gone in absolutely like still half cut. And while the sessions had become less frequent, they were becoming too severe. I had no real control. And on that particular Monday morning, I remember I got up And I literally looked outside my living room window, and I was in an absolute state. And my boss had had a couple of chats with me already, and he'd said, there's something not clicking here, because I'd already done last minute appointments, last minute absences. I hadn't followed procedure, just all of these things that you don't do when you're just on a wrecker. And I jumped out and I was like, oh my God, not again, because it's another Monday morning. I'm literally in a mess, and I didn't know where my car was again. And this was the second time it happened. And that was the moment when I was like, I am becoming now a complete liability to everybody else around me. It wasn't just about me anymore. For a while, I'd been becoming a more severe liability to other people. I'd started to notice it like the looks I would get off my friend's husband when he rocked down on a Monday morning and her and I were still sat there drinking. So yeah, it just all started getting too dangerous, and there was people as well that I just wasn't a good influence on. And I just thought, what am I doing now? And it actually went against the natural people pleaser. So people that didn't feel love or whatever, when they're younger, they become this mad people pleaser, don't they? Because they want everyone to like and to love them. So actually my own actions now are actually going against that. Because I wasn't any good for anyone. I was not any good for anyone. And I was pretty much, probably in my head, I was about to be fired. And then if I was fired, I was going to lose the flat. So I'm pleased to say that actually I got there before that stuff really started to kick in. But it was very close. And I rang my friends straight away, and I was like, I have got to stop drinking. It's not sustainable anymore. I am nowhere near in control of it anymore. And again, I'd just come out of another severely toxic relationship. And so yeah, and it was that day. And then that was when I first stopped drinking. And I did a year, and that was then. And the transformation was mad, because it literally everything, all of the nonsense just stopped, because it was all stemming from that, all of it.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And it's amazing how you was explaining it. And it's a great way to look at it in the sense of, I've met and I've spoken to loads of people that suffered with addiction, but it really went
Yeah.
west. They lost everything, lost the job, lost the car, lost the relationship, children, everything,
Yeah.
but then I'm speaking to you today, and it's put a really nice spin on it, because it's kind of recognizing that where it was going wrong, but you um are honest today and go, do you know what? If I carried on, I would have lost everything,
Mhm.
and it kind of shows and it shares with people that there is that chance that you can just stop it from going west.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There is that opportunity to do that. And it's great that you had courage to do that.
Mm.
That's huge, especially with what you was going through in yourself internally.
Mhm.
Um, it's huge.
Mm.
So going kind of picking at that amazing story that you were sharing. So how did your mental health begin to show sort of physically through all of this, and how scary was it for you throughout that process?
So before I stopped drinking, there was all sorts going awry. I'd had alopecia like twice. So like when I was really bad on the sessions, like my hair would just start falling out. And I think that was due to the levels of anxiety, because obviously
Yeah.
I was a severely anxious person who then was just completely polluting herself with, alcohol's a depressant, and then all, whatever else that went along with it, stimulants and whatever. So my nervous system was a wreck. There was a couple of times where I'd had a panic attack so severe I just blacked out and fainted on the floor, just completely out. My hair falling out, and I had all sorts of like health problems that I kept going to the hospital for. Like nothing inside of me was healthy, you know, on my digestive system and everything like that was just, you know, completely shot. Um, and then when when I stopped drinking, so from that point, then when I was like, right, completely remove it all, remove all of the nonsense. That was like the weirdest time because you stop what you've been using to cope and to block for, you know, more of your life than you haven't. And then you really see what's there. You know, you really see what's there. It's like taking off the lid and then like you look inside and you're like, oh my gosh, now the real work needs to start.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a mess under here. So that was like the most scariest thing.
That's brilliant. And I think it made me chuckle because I'm very similar, and probably some of the listeners as well are very similar. It's like you said, you relive your youth, don't
Yeah.
you? You're kind of all them years that, yeah, we can look at it and go, all them years that I've messed up and all them years that I missed, you know, we've got that opportunity to relive that now. And you know, for me, I'm coming up 3 years clean this year, but I still feel like a young lad
Yeah.
too, because I'm still learning so much about myself. I'm still
Yeah.
learning, like what you said, you know, doing that self-development stuff. I'm still learning how to speak to people. I'm still learning how to speak to my partner
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because she has to pull me up in how I speak sometimes,
Yeah.
you know. But the great thing is that when you're in that situation, when you start to see things for what they are and go, oh, actually, that's not the right way of how to do things.
Yeah.
And oh, I've got to do it like this. It's amazing. It's an amazing place to be. And
Yeah.
I'd encourage anybody that is really nervous about it. Yes, it's painful and it's difficult, but it's the best place to be because we
Yeah.
become teachable, don't we? And we become people that we can really progress well in life.
Yeah.
Because people like us, people want to be around because they're like, "Do you know what? They've got something that I haven't,
Mm-hmm.
and I really want to be around that. I want to learn about myself. I want to do amazing things in my life." And you can do them
Yeah.
things, even though we may have a past. And like people say, "Oh, that person over there, they've got a past." Yeah, so what?
Mm-hmm.
That past is what made you today. And obviously, with the situation that you went through, you're grateful for. You know, when COVID happened,
Mm-hmm.
again, you're one of many people that I know that have been very grateful for that period
Mm.
because they had no other bloody choice but to sit with
Yeah.
themselves and to learn more about themselves. Um, so kind of let's go on to sort of your growth
Mm-hmm.
now and the healing and life now, because that's what people really want to hear as
Mm-hmm.
well. You know, we've spoken about the nitty gritty stuff. We've spoken about the raw stuff that went on for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as a child growing up. So what was the sort of first step you took towards actually working on yourself?
So it was so once I started reading, reading up about things, a load of stuff became evident really. So I'd never really understood why, you know, I wasn't able to be happy or like even when I stopped drinking for the longest time, and this is something, you know, that's always kind of a maintenance. It's like it's the entitlement and why I was doing things. So things used to come from a very selfish place and and yeah, I had no I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to change that. And then I started going further into learning about, you know, how trauma affects you on a subconscious level and why, you know, how we're all wired up and how, you know, we have to kind of go against the grain, but it is a constant effort every day because obviously I did stop drinking for a year and then I started again because I was like, right, I'm not an alcoholic because I've not drank for a year. So I'm fine. And so I'm gonna see what that's like now. And it was the same shit but a different day. And it didn't matter that I hadn't drank for a year because as soon as that liquid hit my mouth, it was like being hijacked by that same old thing that, you know, that had hijacked so much of my life. So I became kind of obsessed with figuring all this stuff out. So I would I would spend hours. I mean, I don't even know how many hours I've spent listening to podcasts and, you know, audiobooks and all of these sorts of things, reading books. I wanted to become, the big thing for me was I always wanted to find a partner and have kids. And it never worked out. And I knew that actually the reason it never worked out is because, you know, I was broken inside for a while. And so if that's what you're giving out, that's what you're getting back. So I was on a big mission to make myself, you know, a good energy and a good to attract somebody decent that was gonna treat me well. Because, you know, whilst not every relationship I had was, you know, toxic, there was a lot of them situations. So that was kind of my mission, really. But as you say, I kind of probably took that to the extreme because it was like, you know, listening to as much material and whatever. And then I had to recognize that and get used to putting it into play. You know, I was consuming all of this information, but then like I had to actually like use it, you know, and actually, yeah, put it into the practical. So yeah, it was when, and like when you and I first spoke, I think back now and I think how different that conversation would have been. Like it's always, you know, it's always like a maintenance, isn't it? And you go through these different stages. So like when I spoke to you first, I would have absolutely been coming more from a sort of an addictive route. Because at that time, that's where I was, you know. So, and then as I learned more and sort of started to discover how things had shaped me, then things change. I've done a lot of professional therapy as well. Um, I've had a mental health coach too, which was brilliant. I obviously found my dad. So that was like a journey of, right, let's do that. Luckily for me, a positive one. So yeah, we have a relationship now. I took the time to find out about my mum's life, then my grandma's life, and really learn about generational trauma and actually see that the line of women in my family had completely followed the same pattern. And decided that, you know, I was going to break that pattern. Because that was always the thing. I wanted to settle. I wanted to have the family I never had, and I didn't want to pass any of the shit down any further. That was the big thing. It was like, okay, that's my purpose, you know, finding my why, which was a big moment for me, because I could see the pattern, I could see how everything had played out, and then for me, it was that's my purpose now, is to break that pattern in its entirety. And attempting to do all this when I'd realised just how severely stunted my emotional maturity was was interesting. And then obviously bringing kids into the mix, and then if there's anyone that's going to teach you about yourself, it's your kids, isn't it? So yeah, the work continues.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. That's incredible. Like the journey that you've given us today is absolutely incredible because yeah, it's an amazing story and everyone has a powerful story,
Mm,
you know. Everyone has an absolutely incredible story, and your story is incredible, Donna. And I think you should be really, really proud of yourself. And I think a lot of people that may be listening, we have to be proud of ourselves because, to do this stuff is huge, it's
mhm,
massive. And I don't think we really give ourselves enough credit
mm,
for what we've been through and how we've overcome it today. Um, so anybody that's listening today and you've gone through something similar, give yourself a pat on the back.
yeah,
Even though it may look weird, pat yourself on the back.
yeah,
So it's really great. You've said about, you're in a healthy relationship
mhm,
now. You've got beautiful children in your life now.
mhm.
Um, so what sort of, do you ever sort of feel that old version of yourself is ever creeping back in?
Oh yeah.
or yeah, how do you handle it today when it does creep back in?
So there's a part of, as because as I've researched and I found that, it's a subconscious, um that's where that's your baseline, like it's your subconscious, and whatever went on when you were so young has shaped that. So if I don't constantly maintain myself in a certain way, I will slip back into that. So if I do what I always
Mhm.
did, I will ruin my own life. There's no doubt about that. And I don't now, because I'm so into health and wellness, I don't want to drink purely because I don't want to put a poison in my body. And then I don't want to drink also because um I know that given the right tools, I 100% could ruin this all. For me to abstain from drinking is to me to preserve the life that I've worked so damn hard to create. And there's nothing that can persuade me otherwise in that area. However, life gets hard and there's things completely out of your control. And there's also things that I wasn't equipped to deal with. So I I was used to chaos and ups and downs and tragedy. And funnily enough, actually, in my work, it's kind of what them skills actually play a good part because, being in insurance, I kind of prepare for the worst case. So yeah, it's funny how that kind of like I ended up in that position. But yeah, so definitely there's a whole host of things that come into play um that that kind of set out or that tried to get me to sabotage my own life. So that's why I've got to be super careful with what I do and what's taking my energy and my time. Because if my mood gets too low, then this is when I get real alcohol cravings. Because I'm looking to change that. I'm looking to change that feeling in my mind. So I'll have life is great now, of course, and I'm so so lucky. However, there are days when if my mood is low, I've got everything I always wanted. However, I can feel so isolated, and it's a really weird feeling. Like I can feel isolated and completely alone in my own mind. So, and I know better now because I've done the research. I know why them thoughts are creeping in. I know it's because I'm sleep deprived. I haven't had any time for myself. I haven't done my exercise. And these are all things that I have to do that act like armor around me. So, and
Mhm.
I am a bit high maintenance. I need more than most to function like a normal human being. Um, Without having like a manic up and down sort of episode. It's really important for me to make sure that I get all of this and also speak to my partner and tell him when I need some of this. Because I always wanted the life I didn't have, but what I didn't realize is that I wasn't actually equipped to have the life that I have now. So I grew up completely out for myself. Well, of course, when you have kids, you have to be the opposite of that. You have to be selfless. And this was something that completely shook my entire world. Having to become so selfless and also having to really lean into my relationship and be vulnerable. Oh my goodness, do I struggle with being vulnerable?
Hard, isn't it?
So hard because in all my past relationships now I can see that I was so heavily guarded and I kept my own independence, I kept my own stuff, and I very much operated like that. Nobody really ever fully got through all the barriers. um but when you choose then to have a family with someone, like it comes to a point you either do it or you're going to break up.
Mm.
So yeah, having to recognize that and really let the guard down and really be fully immersed in something where I've not got one foot out the door, I've not got an emergency plan, a plan B, because I
Yeah.
would always be like, I'd always be like, right, I'm going to have to save myself at some point because it'll all go wrong, and this is what my plan's going to be. To have to, you know, do away with all of that and be so fully immersed in something, it completely goes against everything that subconsciously I am. so that is probably like the hardest things. And then there's also the voices that come from deep down within when you are in a low place, that
Yeah.
you need to set, you because that it's always going to try to get me back to that horrible lonely place on my own. That's what it is, because that's what it was. So it's having to realize, I know why them thoughts are coming. I know what I need to do to counteract it, and you have to get on and do it. And it is a constant maintenance. It really is. And it's
Mm.
not always like that. There's obviously periods of time, but life will get you in, when you least expect it. And yeah, just that whole transition of becoming a parent. And I'm so much better now. Now that I've had my second, I'm so much better now. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, managing my reactions, and yeah, I feel, my firstborn definitely got a less improved version than my second one has. But yeah, she was sent to challenge and test me every day, so that's fine. But and to make me grow as well, because she's the whole reason
Yeah.
why I went really in on the self-development when she was born, because I was like,
Mm.
I have to be better for this amazing little girl. I'm now shaping who she is, so I have to sort this other stuff out, because
Mm.
there was so much of it still lingering, even though I'd already been alcohol-free for so long and I'd already done so much work. Well, nothing prepared me for
No.
becoming a parent. Nothing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I went in on it, because I was like I say, I'm not, she's going to make her own mistakes. She's going to go through her own stuff. It's not going to be what comes. I don't want it to be what comes from me. I don't want to pass that on.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Mm.
That is awesome. Like, brilliant.
Ah.
It's really good to kind of, like, you've kind of just brought it to end for us, really, because you've really touched on everything. Um, in understanding that, being vigilant of all of these things,
Yeah,
understanding that these things do happen. Something might creep up, but you're vigilant, and also being in a relationship that you are now, having a brilliant partner, that you need to share about it, talk about it,
yeah,
get vulnerable. Everyone hates that word vulnerable. I hate it with a passion. But so does my partner as well. But do you know what? We really help one another out. We always just say, how's your day been? Even though we're like, I don't really want to share about that. Are you sure you're okay? Do you need a cuddle? I'm more of I just need a cuddle. I don't want to talk about it. I just need a
yeah,
cuddle.
yeah,
And it all just goes away for a minute. But everyone's different. Some people love talking, some people don't. Some people like just to be left alone and just kind of be in that moment and then kind of let that person speak. Everybody's different. If whatever works for you is fine. So to kind of bring it all to an end,
hmm
Donna, what would you say to somebody that's listening right now, who maybe is stuck in that same cycle that you have gone through, or somebody that's just kind of going, I want a piece of that? What do you want to say to them right now as they're listening?
So just, they probably already have an idea of what they need to do. Because you do, don't you? So whatever it is that is your vice that's holding you back, to just get rid of it. Um, I always said that alcohol kept me spinning round in a circle, and then I was going to start going backwards. And yeah, giving up alcohol and having not be someone that was physically dependent on it every day was 100% the best thing I ever did with my life. And to bring awareness to the fact that you can have a job, you can have a home, but you can get smashed with all of your spare time, but you can still make the job just about, and you can call that living. However, I know now that that was very much a half life, and you couldn't all the money in the world could never make me go back to that. Because now I feel like I'm really living. And it's funny that a lot of people can, because of the way society is about alcohol, and you drink it when you're sad and when you're happy, when you're mad and when you're angry, there's just you don't have to have a full-blown problem to get rid of it and have such a better quality of life. Like, I would encourage anyone to take a 90-day break and tell me how you feel. Because you know, at that 3-month mark is where you really start to see and feel some magic. So yeah, just you've got one life. You've spent most of your life drinking every weekend or binge drinking or whatever it is. What's 90 days? What's a year out of your life to try something that, you know, could completely transform your life? Because I know for me that as soon as I stopped drinking, I got everything from life that I always wanted, obviously with the appropriate
That's
hard work.
incredible. Yeah, definitely. We can't forget about the hard work that you put into it as well. You know, and definitely, yeah, big it up for that.
Yeah.
You've got to acknowledge that. Donna, do you know what? I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on
No
today,
worries.
and for sharing such an impactful, inspiring story of yours. And I'm sure that people listening at home going, do you know what, that was incredible, you know, I want a piece of that. And if you guys want a piece of it, Donna has explained how you can do it as well. If she can do it, so bloody can you. Don't forget that. And I remember people used to say that to me all the time, you know, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm like, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I can bloody do it. You can do it. So Donna, you know, thank you so much. And anyone that's listening at home as well, what we'll do is we won't do it on the live on the podcast yet, but what I'll do is I will put the information on if Donna is happy with doing it, if she wants to put one of her social medias on there, and if anyone wants to reach out or have any questions that want to fire away to Donna, then I'm sure she'll be happy with it. I'm looking at you like that, going,
Yeah,
are
it's
you all
fine.
right with that? Is that okay? Yeah. So yeah, if there's any, you know, women out there that are listening, that, you know, has gone through something similar or is just wanted to ask a question because they haven't got a clue what to do about it, then please do reach out. You're not alone. You really aren't alone. And this is why, you know, we're in this period of time now where things are really hard at the moment and people don't know what to do in their lives and where they are. But we've got brilliant people like Donna that have come on and shared their story to give the message of hope, you know, that you can be that person that you want to be. And that's what Donna's doing today. So yeah, Donna, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for everyone that's listening. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.